I think these numbers are really illuminating on this topic because I just think there's such a clear trend among the American public. So transgender female athletes in women's sports, only 18% of the country says that they should be, in fact, allowed to participate in women's sports. Compare this to the opposition. I mean, my goodness gracious, 79%. You rarely get 79% of the country to agree on anything, but they do, in fact, agree on the idea of opposing transgender female athletes in women's sports.
How does this break down across party lines?
Yeah, so, when you get 79% of Americans to agree on anything, in this case, opposition to transgender female athletes in women's sports, you got to believe that it's the majority across all parties, and that's in fact what we see. So transgender female athletes, again, opposing them in women's sports. You get 67% of Democrats, so 2/3 there. You get 64% of independents, so you get about 2/3 there. And then look at this, near uniformity among Republicans, 94% of Republicans in opposition. You rarely get 67% of Democrats and 94% of Republicans to agree on anything, but they do on this particular issue.
It is truly astonishing and frankly kind of hilarious to me that Democrats continue to die metaphorically on this hill. It's actually crazy, okay? Because this is a political party that constantly is obsessed with its image. The Democrats have these huge teams of social media staffers and like magazine writers, and they make sure everything is perfectly aligned with the optics and all of that. You saw that in the Kamala 2024 campaign, by the way. A lot of people said it was fake because it was so closely monitored for like every piece of messaging, all this. That's why it felt empty. But nonetheless, with all of the quality control that happens in the Democrat Party, it is truly astonishing to watch as they continue to die on a political hill that many people, including on their side, MSNBC, even like, Scarborough and all these people are saying stuff like this, right? That after the 2024 election, we have to drop the social issues we are unpopular on. And by the way, this whole trans athletes playing in women's sports thing was a big example of that. 79% of Americans oppose you on this issue. And somehow, some way, the Democrats continue to go out and think that this is the correct political hill to keep dying on. Of course, some of you might sit here and say, oh, no, Vince, that's not true. Because because I heard this all the time, even in the 2024 election. I'd hear liberal pundits go on TV and say, that's a complete straw man. The Democrats don't actually believe in this, right? What Democrat politician is even talking about that? So that's what we've been told, right? The Democrats are not actually for this. This is a misrepresentation of what the party believes, except for the fact, guys, that that is not true, because today we have an update for you on this clip you might have seen. Remember this whole debacle with the Maine governor, of course, about like last month, right? President Trump signed an executive order banning men, I should say, from competing in women's sports. And that should have been the moment that if the Democrat Party is truly introspecting, has truly learned its lessons from the 2024 election, that's the moment where you stand down. You say, okay, ignore it, move on. No, you knew at least one Democrat politician had to take the bait. And many of you guys may remember that was the governor of Maine, who had this big public spat with Trump at the White House that goes down in infamy, truly. But it was amazing to watch.
I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it, because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply, because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics. Every state has a responsibility to comply with Title IX. They have an obligation, a legal obligation. And we'll be enforcing aggressively, and we're going to be protecting our citizens. We're going to protect.
Yeah, well, you can probably see where we are going with this, but today, ladies and gentlemen, we have an update on that entire situation where Trump told the Democrat governor of Maine, hey, if you do not comply with the executive order, if you continue to violate Title IX, which you're absolutely doing in this process, you're going to lose federal funding. Ladies and gentlemen, not only has Maine lost federal funding. They apparently then, at least at the university level, actually caved to Trump, but the local schools, some of them still are not doing it. So now, guys, not only are they facing Title IX investigation from the Department of Education, that's now even been escalated to the Department of Justice, guys. That is right. And a lot more. So, there's many layers to this story, right? On one hand, some of the universities are just saying it's not worth the battle. They're backing down. But you have other schools in Maine, and to my knowledge, I think the governor still appears to be wanting to continue dying on this hill of, I'll lose federal funding and take you to court to ensure the constitutional God-given right of men to play in women's sports. It's absolutely insane. There's a lot to talk about here today, and I think the big difference to keep in mind here, guys, is the difference between the first Trump administration and the second Trump administration is enforcement. Have you guys noticed that? Because think back to the first Trump term. There are a lot of executive orders like this. I remember, free speech on college campuses and all this stuff, but you never had an arm of enforcement. People would hear the executive order, ignore it, nothing would be done. Now it's a lot different. The attitude, the approach this time is no, you're not going to just defy or do whatever you want. These executive orders have weight, and we'll tell you about all of the consequences, and it's very hilarious and awesome that are happening to the Maine governor today. But first, a word from our sponsors. If you guys didn't know, I just got back from a vacation in Spain, and I kid you not, as I was there trying to go on American news websites to do the research to make these videos, I kept repeatedly running into this screen right here, and I'm not even joking. This really did happen. I screenshotted it. As you can see, several different American news websites, as it turns out, were blocked by the European Union. Talk about communism. And guys, here's the thing. I thought to myself, how am I going to do the videos? I need to show these. I need to talk about these. Well, I would have been SOL if it had not been for the help of our friends today over at Aura, because with the help of their VPN, which is a virtual private network, I was able to bypass that government firewall and do my work and provide you guys this content. But the thing is, that's not all that Aura can do. From their VPN that protects your internet browsing privacy and blocks malicious websites, to their antivirus software, to live credit monitoring and identity theft protection that will notify you live of any incoming threats. If there is a form of digital privacy or protection that you need, Aura has got it. Think about several different services under one roof. And here's the thing. A lot of other businesses out there, and I'm sure you hear the advertising every day, will offer you a single service like, say, a VPN or antivirus software or identity theft protection. But here's the thing that makes Aura unique. None of those services will give you all of them under one roof in one easy-to-use app and software for such a low price. Because, guys, for just $12 a month, Aura can serve as your all-in-one, easy-to-use software when it comes to digital and online privacy. We live in times, obviously, where you can't go a single week without hearing about a new cyber attack or data breach, so don't wait for that to be you. Protect your online digital privacy today, and if you use my link at aura.com/Vince, you can try Aura for free for 14 days. Again, aura.com/Vince for 14 days free, no strings attached. And I guarantee a lot of you guys are going to like the ability to have such an easy to use app that does everything you need with digital privacy under one roof. Again, aura.com/Vince for antivirus, VPN, much more. Aura.com/Vince. All right, so that said, what's happening to the Maine Democrat governor and their entire state with federal funding and all of that? Well, again, let's go here in chronological order because there's many layers to this story. So first and foremost, as Trump said, he was threatening to pull the funding due to violations of Title IX. And by the way, there is plenty of precedent for that. If you violate Title IX, you lose federal funding. That's kind of how it works, especially for the educational level, right? Big part of civil rights legislation, of course, back during the 1960s and 70s. So the first thing they announced, Linda McMahon over at the Department of Education, finally using the DOE for something for once, came out and said that as a response to this, right, we're going to be investigating you for those Title IX violations. And as you can see, the conclusion of that investigation ultimately was what, guys? Here you go. Maine found in violation of Title IX over transgender athletes after Trump clash with the governor. From Washington on March 19th, Maine's education office is being ordered to ban transgender athletes from girls and women's sports or face federal prosecution, an escalation in President Trump's threats to pull federal money from states and schools over transgender athletes. As you can see right here, the U.S. Department of Education on Wednesday said an investigation concluded that Maine's education office violated the Title IX anti-discrimination law by allowing transgender girls to compete on girls' sports teams and use girls' facilities. It's giving Maine 10 days to comply with a list of demands or face Justice Department prosecution. Okay, as you can see, if Maine does not swiftly and completely come into compliance with Title IX, we will initiate the process to limit the Maine Department of Education's access to federal funding. The investigation was opened on February 21st, just hours after Trump and Janet Mills, the governor there, clashed over the issue. Like I said, this is the big difference between last Trump administration and this time around. Because this time around, what happens? It's not just empty threats. It's not just empty platitudes. No. When Trump says, we're going to strip your federal funding, that's immediately the process that they begin, right? Mills, of course, has told the Republican president, we'll see you in court. And this is the very funny thing. After she took that big public stand, after she tried to do the tough girl act, in front of the president and all that, you would think, right? If she's not going to back down, she's probably all out over TV, right? Making big stands against Trump. She's the face of the resistance, all this. But the hilarious part also about this story is ever since that all happened, again, instead of being like the big public warrior about this that you would think she would be after that kind of behavior, she apparently has just gone quiet, guys. I kid you not. She basically just vanished because you see this in virtually every single news story about the issue. Messages to Mills' office and the state's education department were not immediately answered, right? So, the reporters all reach out for comment and the governor apparently never replies because, in short, she just is in hiding. I don't know if she's scared of what's going on, but, she's still getting involved in the legal business with Trump, but also too scared of it to make it public. I don't know exactly what is going on. I just want to point that out. Now, again, this is March 19th. Maine is told you have 10 days to comply with Title IX or you will be facing charges and prosecution from the U.S. Department of Justice. Now, here's the interesting part. As you can see, on March 21st, 2025, many schools in Maine already make the decision to back down, as you can see right here. Maine universities back down to Trump and will ban trans athletes from women's sports. Universities in Maine have caved to the pressure of the Trump administration on this issue after an order, as you can see here, from the USDA, which is very interesting. The USDA said that the University of Maine system has clearly communicated its compliance with Title IX's requirement to protect equal opportunities for women and girls to be safe and compete in fair sports as articulated in President Trump's executive order. Any false claim by UMaine can and will result in onerous and even potentially criminal financial liability. Right, so basically the Trump administration is walking around the yard flexing, saying, who wants some? Who wants some? And apparently the Maine university system is saying, no, I'm good. No, sir, no problems, no problems. But of course, simultaneously, we have the curious case of the Maine governor and some of the other school districts that we'll tell you about in a second, because as much as I'd like to say that it really is this simple, right? As Outkick here says, it was only a matter of time before the University of Maine system would cave after Trump pulled federal funding to force its hand. But these universities and politicians have committed to being on the 20 side of an 80-20 issue. And that is, of course, remarkable, as you can see here, right? University of Maine responded to the USDA's questions by representing to the government that UMaine does not permit males to participate in women's sports and that UMaine does not have males participating in women's sports. UMaine specifically confirmed that they do not have a male athlete identifying as a female, do not permit a male, and comply with the new NCAA regulations. And yeah, about time. So like I said, University of Maine said, no, we don't want any. That in mind, it really is astonishing, and I don't even understand what the political calculus is of Janet Mills, the Maine governor. Because you have to keep this in mind, right? The Trump administration just got here, and they are obviously looking to make an example out of someone. You don't want to be the first. When you want to come around and say that you're not playing, right? Whether you're like an attorney general or you're the new boss at a company and the first person you fire, you're really brutal to, right? You don't want to be that person in the position where they're making the example out of you. And for Janet Mills, it's like, you're a small state, right? You're a small state that relies on a lot of federal funding. What are you seriously thinking, that you can stand up and win on this? And by the way, it maybe be one thing if it were an issue that were divisive or remotely controversial in America. You know, she could maybe be this big Democrat hero if she truly chose to stand up against, I don't know, what do Democrats care about? Protecting criminal illegals, you know, attacking Elon Musk, whatever it is, but still, right? But she's currently trying to make the big political stand on an issue that a lot of Democrat consultants and operatives are saying quietly, guys, we have to stop talking about this. We have to stop standing up. We have to stop standing up for this, actually, right? And, you know, an issue that, again, 80-20. She's on the 20% side of the American population. That's not good politics for her career. And by the way, on the legal side, okay, it's getting her, as you can see, into a ton of trouble here, because first of all, she just looks completely stupid, especially when, without her permission, the university systems in Maine literally just go and back down, right? They're just like, okay, all right, we're going to side with Trump on this. I'm sure she's fuming about this, but then she goes quiet about it, right? But here's the other thing, is that because of the attention she drew to herself, again, being this relatively small state, just trying to kind of stay out of Trump's wrath, apparently now, guys, the Trump administration is not just investigating her for Title IX violations. They've also opened new investigations into FERPA. Take a listen for yourself. This is hilarious. Like, she is really effing around and finding out. Can't believe it.
Hello, I'm U.S. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, joined by Parents Defending Education founder and president Nicole Neely. Today, the Department of Education is announcing an unprecedented directed investigation into the Maine Department of Education for alleged violations of the Family Educational Rights Privacy Act, or FERPA. We have heard disturbing reports that dozens of Maine school districts allow for schools to create gender plans that support a student's transgender identity and then hide those plans from parents, claiming they don't fall under education records. That is unacceptable and unlawful, if true. Parents and guardians have the right to access their child's education records to guide and safeguard their child's mental, emotional, and physical well-being, and we will uphold the law.
Thank you, Secretary McMahon. You are absolutely correct that parents have a right to know what is taking place while their children are under the care of school personnel. So many of these complaints were ignored by the previous administration. The practice of leaving parents in the dark while schools push students to undergo so-called gender transitions, and it became all too common. We're proud to stand with you and President Trump as you ensure that the law is being followed and that school districts do not infringe on parents' rights.
So by the way, I just want to point out, I'm not sure, I personally cannot confirm if that is happening in Maine, although it is fully believable considering, I will tell you this right here, I know 100% for a fact it's happening in California, okay? The Los Angeles school district, right? The place I went to high school in and grew up in, et cetera, that's a new policy there now, right? It's completely real. You can go to school, let's say you're a boy, right? You can go to school, identify as a girl at school, even change your name, right? In the official school registry, you can change your name there, and the teachers are required to call you by your name and respect your new gender identity. And all of this can happen, I kid you not, without the parent knowing. In fact, it is actually the standard practice. It's the required practice. You cannot inform the parent because they want to respect the kid. Oh, maybe the parent might not like it. And it's insane. It's lunacy. So I just want to make that clear to the Trump administration. You think Maine is doing it? Hey, look at California. I'd have to assume a lot of Democrat states, because if California is doing it, for a fact, if Maine is allegedly doing it, I'm sure it's happening everywhere, right? But again, why are they looking after Maine specifically? Because if you're the Maine governor, you screwed up here, right? You caused all this problem. You're basically shouting to yourself, hey, we're totally defying many different federal statutes and laws. Hey, we're completely radical on this gender issue. And then inevitably, right, that is what comes of it, right? That's inevitably what ends up happening here. And by the way, getting back to the core issue of this video, again, as it turns out, the university systems do not want to get into a battle with the president. So the University of Maine is caving. Columbia University, apparently their new president has just resigned already after getting into a big funding battle with the Trump administration. So in a lot of these different cases, the big universities, the colleges are backing down, but that is actually not the case at the local level. And that's what we have to tell you more about today. Because like I said in the beginning, right, what are you talking about? DOJ referral, DOJ investigation, potential criminal charges. Where could that be happening if the university's already backed down? Well, as it turns out, a lot of small, random school districts in Maine, I once again asked the question, who do you think you're going up against, right? David versus Goliath. Are you serious? You're a tiny school district in a tiny state, and you're like, let's get into this big funding battle with the federal government. Okay, good luck with that. But here is the story from Fox News. As you can see, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Civil Rights, so RFK Jr., on Friday said it referred Maine's, quote, non-compliance with Title IX rules to the Justice Department for enforcement. That is right. So they were warned, right? Last week we said, hey, you don't comply, 10 days, we're going to give you referrals to the Justice Department. That's now obviously what is happening. Maine has continued to defy President Donald Trump's executive order to ban trans athletes from women and girls sports. HHS and RFK Jr. gave the state 10 days to correct its policies through a signed agreement or risk referral to the Justice Department. Again, the university said yes. Apparently, though, the governor and the actual public school districts are saying no. As you can see, the Maine School District Administrative District 51, home to Greeley High School, where a transgender athlete incited national controversy after winning a girls' pole vault competition in February, said on Thursday it was not complying and will instead continue to follow state law and the Maine Human Rights Act. I mean, you can do that, but if you violate Title IX, what happens? You lose federal funding. That's how it works, okay? So have fun with that. The Maine Principals Organization said in a statement it is also bound by the law, including the Maine Human Rights Act, which our participation policy reflects. Now, I'm not familiar with the Maine Human Rights Act, but if it's in violation, if it does not coincide with national civil rights law, who wins there? Who wins there? And if it comes down to enforcement, again, we can pull the funding. And yes, the Department of Justice, guys, is now getting involved. I don't know why some tiny school district wants to get into this battle. You know, you think you probably have more important things to do, but no, let's go against the Department of Justice. Okay. As you can see, the OCR announced last week that it found the Maine Department of Education, etc., all these people, Greeley High School, in violation of Title IX for continuing to enable trans inclusion in girls' sports. As you can see, what HHS is asking the Maine Department of Education is simple: to protect female athletes' rights. Correct. That's what Title IX is supposed to do. Girls deserve girls-only sports without male competitors. Again, which is within Title IX. Actually, before this video, I read it. Should we pull it up? Because we always talk about Title IX, so I feel like, hey, why not actually show you what it says? Because I'm sure everyone sort of knows what it is, right? We're talking about a 1972 civil rights law when it came specifically mainly to the issue of gender, right? But as you can see, on athletics, right? Section 450 of Title IX. No person shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation or be treated differently, etc. No recipient shall provide such athletics separately on such a basis. However, the regulations provide that a recipient may operate or sponsor separate teams for members of each sex, right? Men's sports and women's sports. That's basically what Title IX created, okay? You know, you had women's sports, I'm sure, before, but that's where it became mainstream, okay? Where selection for such teams is based upon competitive skill, right? Or the activity involved is a contact sport. Obviously, on all the issues we're talking about, right? There's competitive skill difference between man and woman, whether that's track and field or obviously like basketball, wrestling, football, right? And a lot of those also are just straight up contact sports. However, where a recipient operates or sponsors no such team for members of the other sex and athletic opportunities of that sex have previously been limited, members of the excluded sex must be allowed to try out for the team unless the sport involved is a contact sport. So basically what that is saying is Like, technically, I guess you could have a girl try out for football because there's no girls' football team. But if there's the situation where there's a girls' sport and there's a boys' sport, there's a gender separation, right? There's nothing that has to be debated there. For the purposes of these Title IX regulations, contact sports include boxing, wrestling, rugby, ice hockey, football, basketball, and other sports where the purpose or major activity includes bodily contact. And by the way, we're also talking about competitive skill. So it's something like track and field still. There's a competitive skill difference, okay? That's what it says, right? As you can see, it goes on. The regulations go on to provide that a recipient, blah, 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 shall provide equal opportunity for members of both sexes. This is a federal regulation. If you want federal funding, you have to provide equal opportunity for members of both sexes. If you are putting men and women's sports where, as Title IX states, competitive skill or contact is involved, which is most sports, right? That are played in high school and college and whatnot, you have to provide equal opportunity. Equal opportunity is obviously being denied here, okay? And again, you go on, this basically created women's sports, the whole, equal opportunity guidelines. And now you have the state of Maine, as Trump brings up, in total incomplete violation of the entire thing, all right? This is something that Democrats pushed, by the way, back in the day, right? 1972 civil rights legislation. We're talking about Title IX here. Passed by many Democrats in Congress, signed by President Nixon, now apparently something that the left opposes. And they wonder, by the way, why they're declining so rapidly in political popularity, okay? It's just astonishing. You have so many Democrats in the media and whatnot. They always go around saying, I just can't believe it. I just don't understand. Trump did January 6th. Trump did this. Trump says crazy things. How is it that the American electorate said in November that Trump is much more normal and actually more sane than the Democrat Party? Well, gee, I don't know, Democrats. When you somehow now hate Title IX and you can't even define what a woman is, yeah, maybe in contrast, Donald Trump is the only sane option left in this country.
As well. Since Democrats seem to struggle answering this question, I wanted to ask you, what is a woman and why is it important that we understand the difference between men and women?
Well, it's sort of easy to answer for me because a woman is somebody that can have a baby under certain circumstances. She has a quality. A woman is a person who's much smarter than a man, I've always found. A woman is a person that doesn't give a man even a chance of success. And a woman's a person that in many cases has been treated very badly, because I think that what happens with this crazy issue of men being able to play in women's sports is just ridiculous and very unfair to women and very demeaning to women. And that's got to be about a 94%. I read today it was a 94% issue. And I watched the other day, a congressman, a Democrat congressman, fighting for the fact that men should be allowed to compete essentially in women's sports. And I say, I hope they keep that going because they'll never win another election. That's a big deal. But women are basically incredible people, do so much for our country. And we love our women, and we're going to take care of our women. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats, I'm just saying, you wonder why specifically, for instance, the suburban white female vote did not carry you in 2024 like you were thinking. Remember all those Kamala Harris ads? You can vote against your husband. And then in a state like North Carolina, white females actually carried the Republican vote for Trump there and made sure he won the state. There's no one single reason. I think crime, economy, like women, female voters are voters in general. They vote for a complex variety of reasons. But I will say, right, when you have a mom who sees this type of stuff happening in school and knows the Democrat Party are the ones pushing it, how do you think that mother is going to vote in response? I'm just saying, If Republicans maybe in the past provoked the mama bear instinct in a bad way, I don't know, Trump's personality back in 2018 or something, those midterm election years, then what's happened now is the opposite, right? Democrats have provoked that. And again, that's probably why they keep losing. But yeah, like Trump says, let them keep doing it. Let them keep dying on this ridiculous hill. Because, it's not going well for them. All right, with that said, though, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to check out our friends and sponsors over at Aura. Great product. Highly recommend on a personal level there. Be sure to leave a like on this video, guys. Subscribe if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.